Thank you for your interest in this presentation, Scripting the Unpredictable Complexity of Classroom Management, a theoretical model of expert and novice teachers' knowledge and awareness of classroom events. My name is Eliza Wolff. I'm a lector here at University of Iceland School of Education in the Faculty of Subject Teacher Education, and I'm presenting a recently published theory on classroom management scripts today. So, first place I want to begin is with the topic, why classroom management, right? Not always a popular issue of research or theory. The main reason is because teachers are responsible for increasingly diverse groups of students, large groups of students with different backgrounds and different needs. And this presents perennial challenges for both beginner and experienced teachers. And one of the ways that teachers deal with this challenge and complexity is by skillfully managing their classrooms. A great deal of research shows that there's a positive link between effective classroom management and student learning. Proficient teachers directly contribute to gains in students' motivation to learn, their acquisition of critical thinking skills, and most importantly, to deeper learning and conceptual understanding. In short, teachers directly impact student learning, and classroom management directly impacts how well students learn. So, considering its importance to teaching, I want to clarify what I mean by classroom management. I mean it's a combination of the knowledge teachers use to understand what's happening in classrooms and the actions they take to support and facilitate learning in their classrooms. Often classroom management is associated with controlling and correcting student behavior, but this is just one piece of the classroom management puzzle. The core of classroom management is supporting learning. So let's take a look at the kind of situation that teachers are confronted with daily. So there's many places you could look to make sense of what's happening here. Maybe you notice the boys in the center, maybe you're looking at students on the periphery, maybe you're wondering what's he doing with the worksheet. Is he asking a question about it? Is he holding it in a way, waving it around to distract other students? Is that why they're staring at him? Deciding whether or not this photo shows learning or a disruption to learning is difficult, especially when taken out of context. What's happening here can be interpreted in different ways by teachers, just as with the rest of us. The point I want to make is that there are no concrete rules about what's happening or whether the behavior in the photo captures good or bad elements of classroom management, and no one can say whether or not learning is happening. Managing is complicated because it requires constantly making sense of complex moments such as this one. Fortunately, we have a term in educational psychology for this. It's called Witheredness. This was coined by the educational psychologist Jacob Kunin in the 1970s, and it refers to teachers' ability to be aware of everything happening in the classroom at all times. Some people call it a superpower. Put in other terms, you could say Witheredness is teachers' ability to have eyes in the back of their head and to convince students that they have eyes in the back of the head. It requires noticing relevant information, interpreting it in relation to teaching and learning, and making snap decisions about what to do and how to act. Now, this awareness is multisensory. It involves what we see and what we hear as teachers in the classroom. But given the way that the human brain processes information, with vision as our dominant sense, vision plays a key role. First, because it drives what teachers notice and are aware of, and second, because teachers' eyes are often what convey to students that they are alert, that they are aware, and that they care about whether or not students are learning. So in theory and in practice, Witheredness differs greatly between these two groups of expert and novice teachers. Classroom management is an integration of cognitive processing, and it's not learned overnight. Acquiring Witheredness is a process that takes years to develop. And I looked in my dissertation research at how teachers with many years of teaching experience differ from those with limited experience, the experts and novices that I'm about to talk about. So using this expert-novice approach, I investigated large groups of about 35 experts and 35 novices and tried to understand how they made sense of classroom situations. This involved analyzing representations, perceptions, and interpretations. What they know, what they saw, and what it means to them in terms of teaching and learning. All these elements, this ongoing representation of information, the ongoing perceptions, the ongoing interpretations, are all integrated in real time in real classroom situations. These are what inform teacher situational awareness. These are what help teachers make decisions about when to act or not in response to the ongoing unfolding events in the classroom. As this theory was developed out of empirical research, I just want to briefly review core differences in expert and novices' perceptions and interpretations so we can look again at their situational awareness. It's important to point out that the methods that I use to conduct this empirical research that the theory is based on, I asked teachers to view videos taken from actual classroom lessons, and typically these situations were poorly managed. In other words, the videos showed situations of problematic events that teachers needed to think about. Two types of data were used to investigate this. One type of data was verbal data, where participants expressed their thoughts about what they saw in the videos, what they had viewed, and I qualitatively analyzed what they said, particularly what themes their interpretations were focused on. The other type of data I used were eye movements. Here, I analyzed where teachers looked, particularly in terms of what they paid attention to. But eye tracking can only tell us where and what a person is looking at. It doesn't explain why. So these two forms of data were combined. First, let me tell you the core findings from the visual analysis. So experts displayed more focused viewing patterns. They were more selective in their search for information, and novices had more scattered viewing patterns, often looking all over the classroom for any information that might be relevant anywhere in the classroom. Experts monitored more areas of the classroom repeatedly, returning time and time again to these same areas to gather and update their understanding. Novices skipped many areas, and they often skipped the areas that experts were returning to over and over again. The areas that experts were monitoring often showed student interactions, whereas novices were monitoring areas that were visually salient, places where anyone's eyes would be drawn because there were bright colors, lots of movement, or edges, things which attract our attention. So ultimately, we concluded that experts' perception was knowledge-driven. It was based on their knowledge of classroom events, whereas novice perception was driven by the image themselves, in this case, a video. And some of the results that emerged from the verbal data analysis showed equally striking differences. Student learning was the main concern in the interpretations of experts, whereas for novices it was discipline and behavior. Expert teachers often interpreted the role and influence of the teacher on the situation, whereas novices mainly interpreted the problematic behavior they had viewed. Experts often analyzed the type of situation, interpreting what they saw and what it meant in terms of teaching and learning, whereas novices often offered flat, simply visual descriptions, play-by-play reports on what is happening in the classroom, whereas experts were able to project what will happen. They were very predictive in how situations would play out. So now I get into the model itself, which is an attempt to link classroom management theory to the practice of what teachers actually do when they are managing classrooms. All of this research is described in elaborate detail in recent open access publication that I encourage you to check out. The core element that we need to focus on here is what is a classroom management script. So a script is basically a theoretical construct that tries to account for the specific knowledge that people collect and organize that helps them make sense of what they see and experience in the world. In this case, we refer to the world of the classroom. Classroom management scripts are mental representations that consist of common sequences of actions and events that relate to achieving management goals, like supporting learning. So this includes identifying relevant actors and events, making sense of the complexity of situations, and knowing what to do about them. They're composed of enabling conditions, which you see on the left, that are the internal and external background factors influencing various types of events, along with the recognition of consequences, which you can see on the right, which are the signals and sources of problems associated with an event. And these are what also help determine whether or not there's a need to take action to manage the situation. So experts and novices script differ in several crucial ways. As this figure shows, experts typically have richer knowledge of enabling conditions and consequences that are based on extensive experience in the classroom. This knowledge relates to assessing learning, evaluating interactions, and weighing various pedagogical options that are available to the teacher. And since experts are familiar with various types of situations and events, they're more aware of integrated sources of problems in the classroom. They understand that many consequences are sourced in the interaction between students and teachers. In contrast, novices are often unaware of the variety of consequential sources, and they're hyper-focused on the behavioral issues that they associate with students. In many cases, they simply ignore all consequences, take no action. They do nothing because they don't know what to do, where experts are often predicting ensuing events and responding to precursors of problems, being very predictive and proactive in their decision to act. Novices are more reactive, if they even react at all. So there's a major difference in this focus of perception and interpretation. On the one hand, experts are very focused on student learning and frame much of their thinking and awareness around this learning. Novices, not so much. Behavior is the core of their focus, both positive and negative behavior. So the underlying influence of experience is that experts possess more elaborate, predictive scripts that center on deciding to act in proactive ways that support students' learning. Novices, mainly due to their inexperience and their sparsely developed classroom management scripts, are often reactive and constrained. In many cases, activating a script too little, too late in order to effectively manage situations before they escalate. So, in short, expert scripts inform decisions to act that are rapid, proactive, and meaningfully focused on supporting student learning. Novices, less so. But the good news is novices can and do learn how to improve their perceptions and interpretations of events and situations. Often they learn through experience in the classroom. But the question is, can teacher educators help support novices in this development process? And that's where this theory hopefully comes into play. So you might be wondering, okay, Witheredness, it's been around for 50 years, what's new here? Well, this classroom management script theory highlights the visual nature of classroom management and the perceptive element to the interpretive process by emphasizing the role of experience and knowledge in where teachers look, what they look at, how long, etc. So since expert teachers possess this highly integrated knowledge, since they often know where to look, what to monitor, when to act, and how to act, the question is, how do we get beginners to that same level of knowledge and understanding? So we're hoping that this theory can benefit novices who are often distracted by irrelevant features of classrooms and interactions so that they can better notice and understand and make sense of the meaning behind the classroom situations they encounter. Again, I refer you to the article if this presentation has managed to raise some interesting issues that you'd like to look into. And I will end this presentation with questions to you, because any new theory is rightly and readily open to scrutiny and criticism, especially one which claims to have practical relevance. So I'd like your thoughts and ideas on the following. What do you think of classroom management scripts? Are they theoretical plausible? Are they practically applicable? Or is this just more nonsense coming from teacher education? And what kinds of training approaches do you think can best support developing beginners' Witheredness? Is it even possible to train what they notice and train when and how to take action in order to manage and facilitate learning? So thank you very much for your time and attention. And I encourage you to use the email listed in this slide if you would like to ask any questions or engage in deeper discussions about the implications of this research.